morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke and it is now the 5th of November and it is a rather overcast, kind of cloudy day out today here in Jersey. It's one of those days where it's, good morning Joanne, and Sam, hello, good morning, afternoon. And it's, yeah, I'm just looking out. It was actually started out with a really interesting sunrise. Good morning, Alex. And now it's kind of, it's like fog has rolled in because I think it's going to be a little bit warmer day. Good morning, Melissa. So we're kind of in this day where it's, I am planning to work outside today. I usually my Tuesdays are my day off. Usually my sister and I go walking. I do D&D in the afternoon with my friends in England and then I usually watch this live stream that I watch every Tuesday, usually at night around 6. So normally my whole day was, but I was going to do some painting this morning because my sister can't walk today. She's busy. And I've also, but then I found out that our guy who DMs can't do it. He's away with his girlfriend. So I was like, okay, so then I'm going to have a full day to get stuff done. And it's really been interesting lately because over the probably last week or two, there's been this strong urge for me to get stuff done. The two runes that are coming up a lot, and this is not, and I kind of have asked, is this just really about me and my life? And I kind of got, no, this is kind of where everybody's going to be at right now. And the two runes were Isa and Inguz. And those two runes have to do with, Isa is like, good morning, Pat. It's like a straight line rune, and it's literally the rune of being stuck. It is the rune of winter, okay? And it's this idea that there's this place where we feel like we want to move forward, but we can't, okay? There's this reason to pause. And Inguz is about, it's a rune of the moon. So of course, obviously when we think of moon energy, we're thinking of something that is very, that can be amorphous, that we we can't really see clearly what the path forward is. And that may be part of the whole thing. But both of certainly what Inguz implies is if this is the time to complete beginnings. So I have found that what I have been driven to is stuff that, I know it's kind of been around, but I'm like, don't really want to do it. Cleaning out the basement, putting stuff up for sale, giving stuff away to Habitat for Humanity, going out and getting, stickers for the rubbish and so I can put out a whole bunch of it. And I feel like there's this push, like literally it's like almost like the guides are saying, you give yourself the first 6 months of 2025, you're going to be out. Like, I'm going to move out of this house, leave. So there's a sense of like, get things cleaned up, get the outside painted, get it looking nice, deal with the yard, you get everything the way you would want to have it if you were going to put it up for sale. And of course, the other big piece of doing that would be I have to have the septic tested first because that's always a thing. Good morning, Suda. So that's not something until that decision's actually made. Then at that point, or when I know that it's imminent, that's when I would do that because that would be that's a first step. And New Jersey's really hard with that. They're really hard on septic. My sister told me that the new law is that your septic has to support 4 people. I'm like, this is a house for 2 people. And it's a small backyard. Like, how am I going to have... I don't know. Maybe my septic would work for 4 people. I don't know. But it's only worked for 1 all these years. So, who knows? So, we'll see. But in any case, I feel like there's a very strong push, like, no, get things organized because you're finally going to have your chance to move, kind of thing. And of course, moving, just for people who are part of my communities, live streams and stuff, that's not going to change anything. It might change up the timing a little bit of when I do things, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to, it doesn't mean like, oh, well, now I'm going to walk away from the business. You know what I mean? It's just, it's going to be, but I'm going to have to refigure how I do it and like what kind of hours I'm going to keep because of if there's a time difference. So I'm also thinking, even if I'm not moving right away, that I keep feeling like I want to at least make a short trip there. But again, right now finances are a thing, but it is telling me to look at those very closely and see what my possibilities are. Because I feel like I said yesterday, I feel like I just want a week away over in England and just to to work on stuff and to be able to go see my London hairdresser. So we will see what happens. Obviously today, I mean, it's election day in the USA. So if you go out, regardless of whether, I mean, now, again, I've been really struggling to stay away from social media. I did do another thing last night. I went on my personal Facebook page, and I think I purged like 300 people. I think I had like 700 followers or something, and I just was like, some of these are people I went to high school with who I have nothing in common with. Some of them are people who have died, and their page is still up. Some of them are people who I knew as librarians, like as professional contacts years ago, and some of them, as far as I know, have probably abandoned their pages years ago because they retired or whatever. And, you know, back in the mid-2000s, everybody had to get Facebook because it was like, oh, Web 2.0. Like, I remember that whole shtick. And so I think a lot of those people abandoned their pages. And if I haven't heard from someone since like 2008, it's like, goodbye. You know, I mean, even if there's no issue with them, it's like, I just feel like there's a lot cluttering up my page. A lot of people were not seeing things. So I feel like there's a lot of, I guess the point being is that I feel like there's a lot of clutter that's being decluttered right now. And I don't know if some of you are feeling the same way, but there's definitely a sense here. And I know winter's coming and there's kind of like a nesting instinct anyway. Let's get prepared for the winter and that kind of a thing. I know that's kind of a natural thing anyway. What I was saying about Election Day is just that the energy around that, I mean, I even if I just step outside of my house, it's like I'm very keenly aware of this really tense, divided, intense kind of energy. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying very hard not to focus on that. I'm really trying to focus on just doing what I have to do for myself and for, you know, and for my clients and for people in my community. Alex says, I've been purging my Instagram friends and old magic materia, but I still have too much of, so this resonates. Yeah, and actually, that's something I want to do, because if anybody owns a Mac, you know that Apple's new thing is, well, it's been their thing for a little while, is that rather than give you a computer with a certain amount of storage, you have to buy iCloud storage, which I hate. I don't want to put my stuff on iCloud. I don't want it out there. But also trying to put things on like USB drives and other kinds of media, like all the USB drives I have to use a USB like hub converter to be able to look at the stuff that's on there. And eventually media, you know, wears out and so forth. So, but keeping physical copies isn't really, it's not really practical either. So, but I'm kind of in this mode of I just want to get rid of stuff. And yeah, I want to clean my computer files off too, to that point. And probably I'm going to start going through my other accounts. I'm probably going to delete my X account because the only thing I do there is post the podcast. I think 1 or 2 people look at it. There are some people I follow there, like some astrologers and some, I follow Larry the cat, the Downing Street cat. Because I think the photographer's name is Justin Ng. He actually takes pictures of, he's kind of like the official Larry photographer, and I just love seeing pictures of Larry, especially like him in front of 10 Downing Street with the little podium, and he's standing there like he's the prime minister and he's making his dick. And I've often said, I said Larry should be the prime minister of the UK. I've always said I think all politicians should be replaced with like cats. I mean, and I know there's dog people out there who will say no dogs, but I'm like no, cats, because cats, I mean, they don't really give a crap, so they're just gonna kind of like just be there and do what they want as long as they get fed. I don't know. They're the kind of, I'm just like, I just think animals should run government, because I think they'll do a better job than people. So yeah, I would love to see like a cat run for the presidency of the United States. No, cats would be best. Dogs get distracted easily. Yeah, that's true. Cats have a lot of focus. I see the ones, I think I've had up to 4 at a time. And like I said, if I wasn't planning on moving, I would totally adopt one right now. But when I look outside, the neighbors' cats who come, like they're the ones that kind of go outside and they do their hunting. And when I watch these cats hunt, I mean, they're just really focused, and they can sit in one place and stare for like a really long time. And so, but they can also just like move just like that. They're my favorite critters. So, so the energy around this right now, is palpable. So as much as I kind of feel like I would like to get away from the house for a little bit, I'm kind of like, maybe I don't. Maybe I want to just stay here. I do have to go to town hall to get, stickers, as I mentioned, to throw things away. But I was like, I ain't going today because today is voting day, so I'm not going down there today. I've already voted. So, yeah. So it's very, very, energetically, it's a very intense day here in the U.S. But the topic that I actually wanted to focus on today, I'm trying to think, do I have any updates first? I did a Cattonia live stream yesterday. Today is Blanket Fort Day. Yeah, absolutely, Joanne. I'm 100% with you on that. The other thing is, I did a Cattonia live stream yesterday, and I talked a little bit about Eris. Some of it is a little crossover from here, but I had the Principia Discordia and talking about Erisian energy as representing freedom. You know, it's not about the chaos that ruins our lives. It's that whole, somebody had to put, did it get caught off at the end on that? Yes, it did, and that's what I was going to bring up. It was like, all of a sudden, it was like unstable connection, and it was just flashing in and out, like right at the end as I was about to make my like final point or whatever. And I was like, all right, that's like, I'm talking about Eris, and this whole thing is just going haywire. And there's nothing wrong with my internet, by the way, because as soon as I got off that, I was able to, because then immediately I will write whatever I'm going to write about the recording, and then I'll just say, save recording or whatever it is. I don't remember what it says, but I hit the little button to save it. Yes, it was wild. All of a sudden, it just ended. And different people experience different things. Like Jenny said she watched it, and she's like, yeah, at one point it was like, you were talking, but your mouth wasn't moving. And I was like, that might have been your internet, because I went back and rewatched it, and yeah, at the end, all of a sudden, it was like, boom, it just went out. So I was like, all right, that's the little Erisian joke here, so we'll just leave it at that. So it was kind of funny. So maybe she was tired of me talking, like, just shut up and go out and have fun or whatever, So it's totally, it's totally fine with me, but it's just, but it was just really weird. It's just really funny that we were talking about the goddess of chaos, and then all of a sudden, this disruption comes in, And it was right at the end. It was at 1:00 anyway. It was like, okay, it's 1:00, you're done. I did get my papers graded last night too. It took me, I think I was working until almost 9:00 at night, because after the live stream, I was really tired. I'd been working outside in the morning, and I was exhausted. You were talking and then gone. Poof. Yes, I vanished into the ether. Yeah, it just all of a sudden, and normally I'll say paused due to poor connection, and then it'll reconnect. Like after a couple of seconds, it'll reconnect. But no, it just kept, pause. It kept doing it over and over again. And I'm like, and I could see myself looking at it like, going, what the F is going on here? But finally I was like, all right, I just give up. I'm not going to try to start another live stream at this point. I'm just going to say, I'll just make a note in the recording. Like, yeah, something got messed up there. So it was kind of funny. But I almost felt like, you ever, what was it that somebody, I forget who used to say this, or or maybe it was something I read somewhere, but it was it's like if you're talking about something and then you have a synchronicity that happens at the same time. So let's just say you make a declaration about something, and then all of a sudden, like, an eagle flies overhead and makes a sound. You go, see, the bird is agreeing with me. Like, I've seen that kind of a thing. So I almost feel like it's like I'm talking about Eris, and it's kind of like, yes, but Eris comes in and just disrupts everything, because that's the way she makes herself evident, right? She's a disruptor. So anyway, it was amusing. We've got, but I did manage to get through the list yesterday. And here I am talking about not making lists, and I got through a list. So today's going to be just about working outside. My neighbor's home again today, and I don't like working outside when she's home, but I've noticed she's home like maybe she only goes out like 1 or 2 days a week now. So I wonder if either she's retiring or if she doesn't have as many clients for what she does. Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to try to get all that done, because I don't know. I'm just feeling like I got to clean the basement out. Like, I got to do stuff. And I have been in terrible physical pain, like, all week. And I know Melissa definitely helped me a lot, when I went to her last Thursday. That definitely gave me some relief, but, I don't know what it is. I'm like trying to work with how I sleep and different things, but I think there could be some other factor here, hormonal factor or something like that might be menopausal factor that might be playing a role in this pain, because it seems like it's gotten this bad before and then it just goes away again. So, who the heck knows? But the topic that I had for today had to do with decision. That was what came into my mind. Decision, decisiveness, okay? Now, we could talk about the fact that people are making a big decision today, but that's not really where the idea came in for this. Because one of the things that we talk about is a lot of times what we need to move forward oftentimes has to do with decision, with making a decision to take a step forward. I think it's hormones. She says, I feel like the Tin Man. Yeah, it could well be. It could well be. So when we talk about decisions, okay, it occurred to me we're talking a lot right now about gateway energy. Like when I pull runes, one rune I pull is called Durasaz, which is kind of like a thorn rune, but it's often interpreted as a gateway that you pass through. And we've talked a lot about initiation, and we're actually going to be talking about initiation again in Wednesday night seminar for those of you who are part of it. But we have this, we have this gateway. So I pulled a few cards. I was like a minute late getting on this morning because I thought, let me pull a few cards about this. And there's a number of cards, and I'm not sure if I've pulled all of them, to be honest. Sam says there's a big correlation between estrogen decline and the osteoporosis phase of menopause, something to look into. Yeah, and sorry interrupting, but I had to type that out. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, my mother has really bad osteoporosis and osteopenia, but she's also somebody who grew up with no nutrition whatsoever, so that's why hers is so bad. I almost feel like I have too many stores of estrogen right now, which I shouldn't complain about, right? But the estrogen decline is definitely causing issues for me. And I don't. People are saying like Lorna in Ireland, she's like, you got to go get on HRT, you know, and for Joanne as well. Yeah, something that's worth looking into. I'm trying to find. I'm looking into more natural solutions because I don't want to go on hormone replacement therapy and stuff like that. And I don't think just from past, I was on too many high hormones for too many years, and I'm like, I just don't want to be on any right now. So, but I do need to. I know that there's other things you can take. There's black cohosh, and there's there's other types of things that you can get. Kind of increase the omega-3s and stuff like that. There's things that you can do for sure. And Melissa says, me too. Yeah. So there's certain things that you can do, but it's, I have to, I really need to kind of work with the guides on like, okay, what specifically is going on here? Because, I could say, oh, it's because I need more of this or I need more of that. And it may have nothing to do with it. And me going outside and doing all this yard work's probably not helping either. But I also feel just, again, looking at my family from experience, that just sitting still is not really the best thing to do either. So I don't know. It's trying to find that balance, right? So back to gateways. So one card that we often don't necessarily think of as a gateway card because we think of it as a card of stability, all right? If you need help, I can send some suggestions. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Thank you. So we have the Four of Wands, okay? So we often think about this as a card of stability, right? There's this idea that Four of Wands has to do with having security. You've got the castle, you've got the happy couple here, and you've got you've got the red and the blue suggests a kind of syzygy kind of thing, like a merging of fire and water, right? There's this blend, almost like a temperance kind of energy, and they're holding up bouquets of flowers, and they're doing it in a kind of celebratory kind of manner, like there's been a wedding. Oftentimes, some people will say this is like a wedding card, right? But more traditionally, like if you look at Arthur Edward Waite's interpretation of this card and so forth, it has more to do with just stability, accomplishment. Like I've done the thing, I have the job, I have the money, I have the house, I have the partner. Looks like an altar. We'll go a little bit closer here so you can see. See, there's the castle in the background. I'm not really quite sure what that is, but you've got a couple right here, and you've got more people in the background. So this is almost like a scene of a village or a castle in some way. And but this little gateway here looks like maybe it is the gateway to something like an altar. And you have this here, this almost like this ceremonial kind of it's a gateway. That's what it is. Some people call this the 1111 card just because of the, what we see on here, the four staves, kind of the way they're arranged. And so this is about a gateway that is passed through. That's the way I always see this card. Like this, here's all the things that you've done. Here's what you're celebrating. and then it's like you move through to the next thing, okay? Now, there are other cards of decision that we have as well. Now, obviously, there's the twos, most of the twos. We have the Two of Pentacles often comes up when we are juggling more than one thing. And the fact that you have the infinity sign here, I mean, you're showing the flow between, it's like being in the natural flow. Because as we had said, it's not so much that you need to say, I'm going to be on this side or this side. This demonstrates the fact that in some way we're on both sides. Okay, we go where we need to go. If you want to look at it as a split between, productivity and relaxation, let's just say, then there's times when you are very productive, and then there may be times when you need to take a break. But it's not so much like there's a hard line between those things. It's like, okay, you flow between those things as needed, as the situation presents itself, if you're living in the present. This is sometimes seen as a card of juggling too many things. But I tend to feel that this is more about harmonious flow. The fact that you're going to have many things going on, that most of us don't have just one thing that we get up and do every day. Okay, there's generally a series of things that we have to do, or that we have to focus on. Sometimes we are fortunate enough to say, okay, I can just focus on this one thing. But it kind of goes back to the conversation I was having about with anybody who watched the Cotonia live stream yesterday. I was talking about, Ellen and I had a conversation yesterday morning after I did this live stream. And she was talking about ADHD, and she was talking about it as kind of like, well, is it so much that people are distracted and unable to finish things? Or is it that that's how creativity works? You pick something up and you follow a thread for a while, and then you get drawn in another direction and you start doing something else. So we always have the thing of, I have all these half-finished projects. And it's like, okay, but if it's more about the journey than the destination, is it more about even what you've been taught through that part of the process? I mean, obviously, when we're in school and we're doing things, there has to be an endpoint. There has to be a deadline for how things get done. If you're doing something for business, then that's part of it. I think is more creativity. Yeah, and creativity is something that is not, it's kind of like falling in love. It's kind of like a lot of things. It's not something that you can plan. There are people who are creatives for a living. And so they have to be able to kind of be creative on the spot to a certain degree. Or yes, if you write for a TV show, for instance, that goes on every night, then you have to be in the office and creative all day. Although it's not usually just you by yourself. So there's things that we have to do that kind of do this. So yeah, there's this idea of how do we handle more than one thing. So this is really not even to me about making a choice. This is more about how do we flow with everything that's going on. Now, of course, we have the card 2 of indecisiveness, which is the 2 of Swords. Okay, this is where we have our swords up, we have our defenses, we have the heart closed. I like that analogy. I just found out Hugh Grant is an Aspie with ADHD. Yeah, and I think that sometimes, and that's what I think she was saying, is it necessarily that somebody is suffering from something, or just that they don't want to be shoehorned into the structure that we have as to how things are created or things are done. We're always on this production thing, like, well, you have to produce something, you have to finish a product, so this product can be evaluated, or this product can be sold, or it can be. Does it always have to be about that? And I guess it depends on maybe what the goal is to some degree. If your goal is to say, well, I'm writing a book because I want to publish it, then yeah, you have to kind of reach an endpoint at some point. But like I'm doing with novels, I have ones that I work on, I complete them, and then I'm like, no, now I'm gonna do something totally different with this character. So, like I'm doing now. And that's where I think it came up. She's like, well, it's not so much that I can't focus or I can't keep my attention. It's just that when it's something creative, something that may start out as one kind of idea may grow into something else, So this is about being indecisive, or at least about feeling stuck. But typically this, again, because there's this choice of 2, it's like we're blindfolding ourselves to it. We don't want to see the choice that we have to make. Help create on a regular basis. Oh yeah, it's this has to do with the way in which we are, the way in which we don't make decisions, okay? Which is a decision in and of itself, too, is to not make a decision. But there's definitely a sense here that a decision, it needs to be made, it's just not being made. And again, depending on surrounding cards, when you see this in a reading, it may depend, there may be reasons why you can't make the decision right now. Or this is really a card of kind of like an uneasy peace. I think it's called the, it might even be called the peace card in, I think it's called the peace card in, either peace or, I think truce is the 4 of swords and peace is the 2 of swords in the Crowley deck, and in other esoteric decks. Because it's the idea that you're in a place where you're not moving ahead, but you're not sliding backwards either. So it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of like a safe, comfortable place. But it's kind of safe and comfortable because we're really not looking at the bigger picture. We're just kind of saying, I'm just staying where I am right now. But the implication is that a decision needs to be made. That there is going to be, that decision is, it's being postponed, but it's coming. Now, of course, and then we have the 2 of Wands, right? Okay, this is the person who has the resources. They have the world in their hands, right? And in a sense, you almost feel like they've made a kind of a choice because there's 2 staves and they've got their hand on one, right? And they're looking out. So it's almost like, okay, how do I put my decision into action? How do I move forward? What, if I have the resources, whatever those resources are, they may not always be material, but they may be that you have the plan, or you have the people who are interested, or you have something. Then it's like, okay, how are you going to take that and move to the realm of the 3 of Wands, which is where now it's like we're either waiting for the ship to come in, or you could look at it as, you know, waiting to go out, kind of depending on how you look at it. This person's looking out over the water, right? And we still see these, you know, we have these white and red roses, which is interesting because that reminds me kind of the War of the Roses kind of a thing. That we're, you know, there's the idea that there is this. There's an idea that there's a tension between ideas here. That again, there's still an element of decisiveness here, and the person stands there alone with the world in their hands. So it's kind of like, this is often seen as a card of making a decision to go out and to work with others, right? So what are some of our other, so the 2s are kind of obvious. 2s are about, and the 2 of Cups, I didn't include that one because that oftentimes has to do with coming into relationships. So I almost feel like that's not, it's less about a decision and more about how we're going to, the partnership element of the 2. You know, how are we going to work with others, right? Or how are we going to come into a romantic relationship with another or something like that? So what's the other ones we have? We have the 7 of Pentacles, right? 7 of Pentacles. Now, you can look at this one of 2 ways. Now, you see the guy, he's just kind of standing there looking at his, presumably his crop, what he's trying to grow, right? He's leaning on a hoe, and and you've got these pentacles growing, and he's kind of looking at them, you know, in the way that you might go out and look at your garden and say, okay, how does everything look? So this is a card, I say this is a card of decision because it's a card of evaluation. It's that space in which we evaluate where we're going next. You know, what's the, where do we need to go? And sometimes it's a card of patience. So in one deck, I think it's called the card of failure. And the reason it's called that is because it's like, okay, now you're looking over everything that you've done and you're saying, did I waste my energy on this? Okay, that's kind of the thing. 7 of Pentacles. This is the 7. Yeah, the 8 is the one where you have the guy who's diligently working away. So this is the 7. Yeah, I know the Roman numerals up here are a little hard to read, but that's a 7. And so it's, yeah, so the 7 of Pentacles. Okay, oh, sure. And so this is a card of, do I keep pushing forward or do I give up? That's really kind of the energy of this card. And the idea that it would be a failure card would be, again, in the Crowley deck and some of the other esoteric decks, they call it that. It's because there's the idea that I went along a path and it wasn't the right one. Okay? But I don't, again, like in the Osho Zen deck, which we've looked at, you know that shows the woman who's pregnant and you see the moons over her, and it's called the card of patience. So, and I feel like this implies that a little more. It's like, okay, I'm waiting for the harvest. I'm waiting for the crop to reach a point where I can do something with it. And we're evaluating how far we've come with something. If we're trying to reach a certain destination, how far did we get? So there's a card of, there's a decision element to this as well. Okay, just a couple other ones. King of Swords is often considered to be a decision card because the King of Swords is somebody who is extremely decisive. But in a, Joanne says, like weighing options. Well, weighing options, or just kind of, maybe it's almost kind of like making the list of what you've accomplished maybe, and what you haven't, or what your obstacles are. I think it's more of I feel like the Seven of Pentacles is more of an evaluation than it is, and the decision aspect of it would be about how do you move forward, right? How do we move forward with that? And so we're looking at how, whether we should move forward. And that's where the decision comes in. Let's look at what we've already accomplished. Let's look at the plan. Okay, thank you, like where I'm at. Yeah, I think it's kind of where we're all at to a certain degree right now, right? I mean, it just feels like, we're all constantly evaluating, like, what am I doing and where am I going, right? So if you're in that space, that's definitely a card that comes up a lot. King of Swords, though, is somebody who, this is often considered to be a very cold, detached kind of card. So this is somebody who is just the decision maker. No, the card. Like where I'm at. No, okay, I'm not, maybe I'm not understanding what that's about. But the King of Swords is about, it's about making a decision, and it's really about making the decision based on the facts. It doesn't take any emotion into account, but it is generally somebody who has made a decision and has made up their mind. So that is, and in the sense that, if there is no reevaluation, I've made up my mind, right? That's King of Swords energy. Now, King of Swords can represent other things as well. It can represent somebody of authority, somebody who's an intellectual, a professor, a lawyer, a doctor, somebody of that ilk who comes into a situation and, or maybe just the need to apply mental energy. The card is saying, where am I at? What next? Sorry, not trying to ask questions. Saying, okay, you're saying that the card is saying it. Okay, got it. So the card is about, about this kind of cold clinical decisiveness that somebody can have. Now, Judgment is another card that we have of decision. But Judgment is usually the idea that there's a couple of possibilities with Judgment. One is that things have kind of gone around in a circle a number of times, or that, and finally we're reaching an endpoint. Sometimes Judgment implies a rebirth or a cycle that begins again. Judgment can also mean that we are, like, you have these figures in here who are rising out of the grave, which is the whole idea of the Last Judgment, right? And I think this is often considered to be Gabriel blowing the horn, or maybe not. With this thing, it almost feels like I don't know. That almost looks like the flag of St. George to me. But in any case, it's often interpreted as Gabriel here. And so there's this, but there's the idea of awakening. Either you're resurrecting something, or you're finally you now are awake to something, and being the Judgment is like the next to last card in the deck. It's like, okay, now I'm making a decision about where I'm going. Now I see everything. Now I'm at the end of the cycle. I can see the big picture. Now I'm going to make a decision. Okay, Judgment has that kind of energy to it. And of course, really the ultimate decision card, which we don't tend to think of it that way, is the Lovers. Now, this is Gemini energy, okay? So because this is Gemini energy, there's the sense here that we are, Gemini is the twins, right? And so even Gemini and even Libra, I didn't bring the Justice card out because the Justice to me is more about revealing truth. It can be about bringing things into balance, but it's also about revealing truth and following the law and stuff like that. It can be about partnership too. But I see this more as a card of decision, because the Lovers can come up in a complete non-romantic situation to say, you have a choice to make. Okay? You're going to have a choice to make, and this is what is what you're faced with here. And so we've got all this idea about decision. So when I think about decision, I love always having issues with that card, describing it. I love it. Always have, yeah, exactly. It's very hard. The Lovers, because when we see the term lovers, you have this Adam and Eve image. And again, you have another angel here. It's interesting how many angels you have on these cards. But it's almost the idea of and actually, as people have pointed out in terms of love, you've got Eve is looking up and Adam is looking at her. So it's almost the idea that in these decisions about love and relationship, she's looking up. She's looking at something that's bigger, that's more spiritual, more celestial. He's looking at her. He's looking at her body. She's looking up, okay, at the angel, really. So interesting too, that's kind of a little detail in there that you might think about. And the Devil card, actually, you'll see mirrors this one, but it's the way in which, I'm trying to remember if the Devil, what the look on the face is with that one. Okay, here it is. And in that one, it's almost like neither one of them is looking at each other. They're kind of like just looking out. They're not really looking at each other. Or he's looking down at his chains, the whole ball and chain thing, right? And she's not even looking at him anymore. She's not looking up either. She's just looking out. So yeah, but these are all cards of decision. And I feel like it's interesting because a lot of the energy that we've been talking about recently in readings and so forth has been this energy of being at the threshold, right? We're at a gate. We're moving from one state to another, and the decision has to be made to pass through the gate. But sometimes the gate is not to be passed through without stopping and thinking about it. Or the gate's not to be passed through without, there may be some, it's the joke, the Monty Python joke, the guy at the bridge of the bridge of death, and you have to answer the question 3, what is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color? It could be that, there's the idea of the gatekeeper and passing by the gatekeeper, and we've been talking about Hecate, right? But the idea of the keeper of the keys, who is going to show us, who's going to unlock the gate for us and let us go in. That's kind of the thing too. There's the idea that it's not just an open gate that we can freely walk through, because if that was the case, maybe we would have done it already. But a lot of time there's a fear about what's on the other side of that gate. So it's safer to stay, we think it's safer to stay where we know, unless everything has absolutely, crashed and burned behind us, in which case then we're like, okay, well, that's the only possibility forward, right? And that's what I always say is the difference between making a choice, reflecting and using your consciousness to make that choice, versus kind of getting stuck in the, well, I don't like this, but it's familiar and uncomfortable, and then having everything just explode and fall apart on you, and then that's the only, in other words, somebody has to set your house on fire before you move out of it, right? Even if the universe is giving you signs that it's like, hey, it's time to move on, it's like, okay. It's interesting just thinking about the idea of decision today. This feels like my current job. Too scared to leave, too tired to stay forever. Haha. Yeah, well, exactly. And sometimes making a decision, it's going to be unique to every situation what the right decision is to make, or how soon somebody needs to make a choice or needs to do something. And sometimes I think if we're intuitively in tune, we make it automatically. It's like the iPhone in our head that automatically changes time. We don't have to physically do it ourselves, or whatever. It's something that when we're already in the habit of kind of listening to our guides or listening to our intuition, it's just sort of like we instead of sitting there going, well, should I do this and should I do this? It's like just automatically in a moment, it's like, okay, it's time to do this. And I feel like that's kind of the Two of Pentacles energy, really. It's like, okay, it's time to do this. We're just going to do this now. It's time to do it, And I feel like that is that's kind of the thing. I think the lesson here is just that when we know we need to make changes, but exactly just before leaving my last job. Yeah, well, even like when I left my husband, it was like for years I was like, I knew things weren't just before leaving my last job. That's what Pat's saying here. It's just, when I left my job, it was like, it became very clear to me it was the thing to do. I was scared to death to do it, but I was like, no, it's the right thing to do. When I left my husband, it was like I had been tossing it around because I wasn't happy for years, but I was like, well, I was attached to the cats. I didn't want to, give those away. And there was all kinds of things. Well, I don't know if I can make it financially. Oh, there's so much debt. There's this, there's that. And finally, one morning I woke up, I was sitting on my porch at my house in Denville, and it was just like, literally it was like, almost like a little voice in my head going, okay, it's time. And that's when I immediately started making my plan and finally just said, okay, I need to have the talk. So, but it was weird. But that's just, I think that's, and I think that's the thing. And I think it's less stressful that way too, because we know that something needs to be done, but if it's not, the way is not presenting itself to us, or if we feel it's frightening and kind of still as everything at the job is, it kind of still as everything at the job is so new. Well, right, and I think too, we've talked about that, Pat, too. I think also there's the sense of, that kind of goes back to the perfection thing. Am I doing it exactly right? And if there have been people in the past who have gaslighted us or made us feel that we're not doing enough or we're not adequate, then those kinds of fears can come up, that like, oh my God, I hope I'm doing it right. I hope I'm doing a good thing, especially when it's new. But we kind of have to relax. Yeah, it's kind of like about relaxing into it and just saying, you know what? It's not even so much about taking a mental attitude, I don't think, of saying, oh, I'm awesome at this. Like, I don't think that's necessary, and I don't know that always works. It's kind of like when I have my driving problems and people say, oh, well, you just got to tell, you've driven for over 30 years. Like, you just have to tell yourself. And I'm like, yeah, but the more I tell myself, the worse it gets. It's like if I say to myself, oh, I can't, yeah, very true. Thank you. Yeah. If I, I've been driving for years. This is fine. I can handle this. And it's like immediately that's when my body starts to freeze up. It's like, yeah, screw your rationality. It doesn't want to do that. Well, you're in the same spot. Yeah. It's like there's this thing of how do we go with the flow? And a lot of times we've just got to go with our intuition. And that's why, it's good to develop that, to practice that. And again, the other piece of it, as we talked about in the class, is learning to trust it. Learning to say, the reason we practice it in these kind of settings is because it's like, okay, your intuition is not always going to be about different ways that we engage with it, like remote viewing or even doing readings and stuff. A lot of times it's in a day-to-day situation, and we just have to flow with what's going on, but we have to listen to the information that's being presented to us, because our mind gets caught up in going, well, wait, should I do this? Should I do this? Am I doing this right? Is this wrong? And we let other people come in and tell us different things, which may or may not be accurate. And that's another thing that's come up a lot, by the way. I was doing a full horoscope thing today, and I got the 5 of Wands in the 3rd house. Mercury retrograde is really, really close, and so we need to be very careful, probably through like late December, maybe even early January, about what we're hearing. There's going to be a lot of inaccuracy in terms of what we're hearing. It's not that not everything's going to be inaccurate, but communications are going to be very confused, generally speaking. It could be individually and I think collectively. So just be aware that when you hear something, step back, check facts, take it with a grain of salt, whatever. That came up as well. And in fact, I'm doing a reading. I'm just using the Rider-Waite deck today. Yeah, and that's our center card, is the 5 of Wands. Okay? 5 of Wands is this. This is when we are, again, having to quiet the mind and focus and say, okay, what's going on with me? What's true what is the truth that I'm supposed to be living right now? How can I quiet myself and listen to what my own voice is telling me to go, where it's telling me to go, whether it be my guides, whether it be my inner voice. But 5 of Wands is about having competition. It's like there's too much noise, there's too much distraction. And unconsciously, this is making us, this is driving us crazy. It's making us anxious, okay? This is the person who stays awake at night. But of course, the 9 of Wands is a card of catastrophizing. It's a card of saying, oh, this is going on, so that means that's next. And then that's going to happen. And then that's going to happen. Or this person said this to me today, so that means they don't like me. And that means this. And that means that. That's that kind of mental chain that we get into. And then if you really stop yourself, you're like, that's ridiculous. That's not what's going on at all. Or at least that there's nothing to show that. That's the thing that sometimes we mistake for intuition. And it's not intuition. It's just the voice that's trying to tell us, like, oh, we can't do it. Oh, that's me this week. The mental gymnastics. Oh, yeah. We all get caught in it now and again. And certain things can trigger it in us, I think. But they need awareness that this is what's kind of going on here. And the external feeling of which we're aware, we have the Death card. We're aware that things are changing. We're aware that there's a change afoot, whatever that change means. And that change is... And when death is a major arcana, you see that he's coming up to the bishop here, and there's all the people kind of falling in front of him, and it's just because it's like, yeah, everybody is subject to the change. It's not like, some people don't have to change. Everybody's going to end up changing, kind of whether they want to or not. There's going to be an aspect of change, but we're not talking about a negative change here, or it doesn't have to be a negative change. It only becomes negative when we resist it. when we say, no, I insist that everything, that everything's going to be bad and I have to keep it the way. No, this is like, there's going to be positive change. Okay. So yeah, our advice card is the Five of Pentacles. So what is the Five of Pentacles about? It's about isolation. It's about poverty. It's about feeling left out in the cold. And as an advice card, we're right smack dab in the middle of it. Yeah, we're right. Well, yes, we're definitely in the middle of change. But remember, one of the things I got earlier was that about being stuck. It's kind of like we're here. We know it's coming. Yeah, the Death card. Right. No, exactly. That's what I thought. Yeah, we're in the middle of a change. We're in the middle of that. But we don't know what ultimately that change looks like yet. So the Five of Pentacles here, this is about getting out of this mindset. Going into the building to get not just staying on the outside in the cold. And not playing, and remember in the Osho Zen deck, this is about not playing the script over and over again that we're not good enough or that we're not worthy. Okay, so this is about stopping that script. This also has to do with fears of poverty, and I think this connects in really strongly with the Capricornian energy that's outgoing, that says, yeah, but if you if you follow your dreams, or if this change happens, maybe it's going to affect me financially. Maybe there's not going to be enough money. Maybe there's not. And it's kind of saying, we have the Knight of Pentacles as the outcome. Let's take it one step at a time. And right now, this is like a slow and steady card, okay? The Knight's not moving. And remember, I was saying this is a time of kind of not moving. It's like there's change going on, but our role in it is just to put our feet on the ground, to be practical, to get out of the space that, to stop playing the tape that says we're not worthy and we're never going to have enough, okay? So yeah, this is about, and Knight of Pentacles ultimately is a good omen for security and stability. But for right now, I think that's what we're working on. We're working on, we don't want to let other people, come in and tell us, the boogeyman's coming, you don't want to scare us. Mabel, yes, you're right. It is Mabel in the Osho Zen deck. That is the slowing down card. That is the same one. So yeah, there is the idea that there's a slowdown that's going on. But what we don't want to do is get into a space of fear. We don't want to repeat old tapes that say, I'm an outsider, I'm rejected, I'm not good enough, or I'm not capable, or I'm going to be poor. If somebody who maybe, and again, I'm not suggesting this means anybody has to leave their job or anything, but if somebody is saying no, I'm planning on leaving a job, but I can't leave the job because what if I don't make as much money? You know what I mean? There's fears. I'm just calling that a fear of poverty. And I always say that if it's something you're meant to do, then the money you need will show up. It'll sort itself out, but you may do things differently. We always feel like we have to do, I don't like this situation, so I'm just going to go walk into another one of the same situations and then feel exactly the same in that situation. So yeah, there's a lot here that's happening right now, but I feel like the overall message is, one day at a time, and worry about what you need to clean up your environment, to clean up old business, to empty space for the new. Because certainly in the process of endings, we know that there's things we want to get rid of, and that's probably where our attention should be right now. So so that's what I got for the day. And and with decisions, it's kind of like, we're getting ready to move through those gateways. And once we have enough information to make the decision, once the decision is clear, once our guides say, or instinct or whatever says to us, go for it, then that's when things become easy. That's like when you stop climbing uphill and now it's kind of, they say, all downhill. It's easier. Once the decision is clear, the doing is effortless, because now you know what you're doing, right? When you don't know what you're doing and you don't have all the information, it can be very, very hard. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. It's the ordeal. You don't pass through the gate without contemplation, right? And it's not saying you shouldn't pass through the gate, but it's saying make sure this is all in order, the house is in order before you move ahead. So so that seems to be where they're focusing right now. You're welcome. You're welcome, and have a beautiful day. Yep, and some of you I will see tomorrow night, and of course tomorrow morning, but in class tomorrow night. And you're welcome, and so are you. That's thank you, Pat. And so I will see some of you tomorrow night in class, and you're welcome again. And tomorrow morning, And yeah, I didn't get interrupted on this one. You're welcome, Suda. And yeah, tomorrow morning. So take care. Bye-bye.